For 39 years, I didn't know why I was so weird, or why I struggled so much with friendships, or why I got fired from every job I ever had. But in 2012, when I was diagnosed with autism, the mystery was solved. It was not my moral failing or my terrible personality. I was disordered. I was the missing puzzle piece. I was broken. And since I was broken, that meant I could be fixed. I set about to fix my autism with the focus that only an autistic person could have. I built spreadsheets. I studied all of the cures. I analyzed them. And then I began to work my way through the acronyms. I did ACT, CBT, DBT, EFT, EMDR. I'm not going to take you through the whole alphabet, don't worry. But it is a long list because there is no pill to take for autism. Every treatment there is for autism has one goal, and this is the clinical goal. It is to make the autistic person indistinguishable from their neurotypical peers. That is what success looks like. If you can pretend all day long to be a completely different person and then wake up the next day and do it again, you have succeeded. You are no longer autistic. Congratulations. And lucky for me, I was actually pretty good at this. Once I got diagnosed and jumped into those treatments, my success exploded. If you looked at the number of my social media followers alone, you could see the treatment was working. But inside, I was imploding. I was disappearing. The endless cycle of masking and people-pleasing and guessing the right answers to perform for my neurotypical overlords. It was driving me into deep autistic burnout. I lost friends and family. I lost my ability to speak, to work, to earn an income, until one day, I thought I might disappear forever. And this isn't just my personal story I'm up here to share. I want to share with you some hard statistics. So an analysis in the peer-reviewed journal Molecular Autism in 2023 found that autistic people are 6 to 17 times more likely to die by suicide. And the British Journal of Psychiatry showed the average life expectancy for autistic people is just 58 years. These aren't just numbers. These are lives that are cut short by a medical model that sees us as broken, and the solution is for us to pretend to be someone else. Ironically, that very solution is often what makes us sicker. Now, let me be clear. I'm not trying to say here that autistic people don't have medical issues. Of course we do. In fact, we have more medical issues than the general population. And this is because autism co-occurs highly with lots of conditions. So for instance, when it comes to autoimmune conditions, we're more likely to have fibromyalgia or lupus or hypothyroidism, PCOS, and with GI issues, we're more likely to have IBS or Crohn's or colitis. And then we're also more likely to have mental health conditions, in part because we are told we're broken, which means that over 80% of us suffer from chronic PTSD. We have OCD, we have eating disorders in much higher numbers, and insomnia. And those are just a few. So yes, autistic people desperately need help for our medical conditions. But autism itself, that isn't one of them. Autism is caused by the same thing that causes blue eyes. We lately have been hearing a lot in the news about this misdiagnosis or overdiagnosis crisis. I'm sure you've heard or seen these stories. And I just want you to know there are the exact same percentage of autistic people now that there always has been. I have prepared a handy graph for you to understand. So the percentage of autistic people, that's been the same. But what changed is the way doctors defined autism. And why is this? Because we understand it better. We used to think it was a childhood condition, and only children could be diagnosed as autistic, and specifically, only children that presented in a very specific, narrow framework. As we learned more that no, autism is not caused by vaccines. It is not caused by something in the environment. It is not caused by your mother being mean, which was literally one of the theories that was studied. No, what causes autism is genetics. And as we added that to the definition, more and more people are being included. There is nowhere in my life that this became more obvious than with my grandmother. Now, my grandmother was born in 1919, and just to put that in perspective, the word autism wasn't even invented until 1940. But my grandmother most certainly met the definition. Now, she couldn't read or write. She grew up very poor. She had a third-grade education. She signed her name with an X. But this woman had an encyclopedic knowledge of pressed and cut glass. Just want to show you what that looks like. Now, she could tell you the factories, the names, the designers, the patterns, how many were pressed, how many were cut, and believe me, she would tell you too. When I was a little girl, I would go over and we would play museum. She would line up all her treasures, and then she would take each one out and tell me the story of each little gem. And as she would tell me this, she would light up with excitement and knowledge. And now I find myself wondering, how was she able to gain and store that knowledge when she couldn't even read or write? That is autistic culture. In my grandmother's living room, I was whole. But in the medical model, I was just a broken neurotypical. And that is what is so powerful about looking at autism through a cultural lens. Autistic culture, it can do what the medical model never can. On my podcast, which is about autistic culture, we create my grandmother's living room. For a couple hours a week, our listeners can immerse themselves inside autistic culture where they are whole. And what that gives them is belonging, community, validation, and perhaps most importantly, the confidence to advocate and seek the medical treatment they need and deserve. Now, what I know from our podcast, from every week getting letters from people saying, learning about their cultural birthright has saved their lives and improved their quality of life. So, with your permission, what I would like to do is spend the rest of our time together doing a little cultural training. You up for it? Great. I'm going to teach you 3 things about autistic culture, and learning these can literally improve the lives of people around you, your friends, your family, your coworkers. The first is about communication. So, autistic communication style is direct, honest, clear, very straightforward. Now, we have a reputation often for being known as rude or blunt inside of another culture. But inside our culture, We respect our communication style. And you have all tasted it too. Imagine you're watching your favorite TV show. Maybe it's the season finale of Strictly Come Dancing or a big sporting event. And you're really into it. You're in that flow state. And somebody stands in front of this TV and they start asking about chores. Are you going to do the dishes? Are you going to take out the garbage? What do you say to them? Move. Move, get out the way, move, right? That is autistic communication. Honest, clear, direct. Perfect, no notes. In our culture, our number one goal is to be in a monotropic flow state. So for my grandmother, that's what she was doing when she was learning about pressed and cut glass. We want to be in flow. And when you interrupt that, we will very often have a very blunt reply because that is the value in our culture, to find and maintain that flow state. The autistic researcher, Richard Woods, he always signs his emails, "May your stimming activities be many and your flow states long." Well, these flow states are key to our happiness and our mental health and well-being, but they often get interrupted by sensory inputs. We experience senses, our 5 senses and actually 3 others, in a much bigger way. And this has lots of pros and cons. So for us, when we see something beautiful or sparkly or magical, we experience this in our entire bodies. It is a full body glimmer. And to contain those emotions, we will flap or sometimes squeal or scream or sing with excitement. That is stimming. And that helps us contain and manage our emotions. And when we hear something like a jackhammer or a leaf blower, or we have a scratchy tag, we might rock or pace to manage those triggers. Those triggers and glimmers, they're part of something autistic researchers call the intense world theory. Managing these triggers and glimmers is very important within our culture, and so it is something we celebrate. Now, you might be in the movies or a Lego store and wondering, what is all that racket? What is the screaming and flapping and spinning? That is often autistic joy, autistic sensory management, and autistic emotional regulation. Because when we are emotionally regulated, the way we process information, that is actually where we shine. So imagine Sherlock Holmes. Pick your favorite Sherlock. I'm going to do Benedict Cumberbatch because it's always good to imagine Benedict Cumberbatch. Sherlock walks into a crime scene and he is spotting all these little minute clues, and he begins to put all the clues together and comes up with a unified theory, a hypothesis. He works from the bottom up. That is how autistic people process information, from the details to the specific. Or picture Sir Isaac Newton, sitting under that apple tree, emotionally regulated, in a monotropic flow state, focused on his special interest. That apple falls out of the tree and we've got the theory of gravity. And it wasn't just the theory of gravity that Newton came up with. He also gave us calculus. Okay, you don't look excited about calculus. You didn't like studying calculus? Okay, I promise you, you love calculus. Boats, bridges, buildings, all that, not possible without calculus. So when people talk about curing autism, about getting rid of autism, they're talking about getting rid of contributions to humanity like Newton's. That is why it is so upsetting to advocates like me. See, for me, I imagine a world where autistic culture is something you learn you learn Japanese greeting customs or Finnish sauna traditions. It's part of a world that we can share together. But for that to happen, we need 3 things. The first is we have to stop seeing autism through a medical lens. Yes, autistic people have medical problems, but autism itself is not one of them. Second, we have to treat autistic problems with solutions that are created with autistic minds. And third, and this is why I am here today, is that autistics and non-autistics have to come together to push for this change for the good of humanity. We can't do this alone. And autistic people are in a vulnerable moment right now. We need your help and your support and your advocacy, because autism is so much more for humanity when we see it together as part of our cultural fabric. So I didn't come here today to ask for autistic acceptance. What I came here today to ask for is a commitment to save autistic lives. Thank you.